Hello everybody, welcome back to another Age of Sigmar Warcry video, where today I've got some news. Games Workshop, with the pre-orders going up today of Crypt of Blood, have done a bit of a stealth update to the game. There's a new FAQ errata that has just been released. So we're going to go through it, we're going to take a look to see what changes there are, what impact it might have on your games, and take a look at a more general look as to how this might impact your list building. Okay, here we are, Warhammer Community Downloads. Let's go into Warcry. Here we are, key downloads, the core rules have not been updated since 2022, that's fine. Here we go, FAQs and errata, one document updated 28th of the 7th, 2023. So let's give that a download, let's see where we are. So there's some new things been added. We've got errata for Stealth and Stone, Predator and Prey, Might and Madness, Crypt of Blood, which is coming out very soon, and Bladeborn Fighters. Number 1, we got Core Book Errata. Page 61, Alternative Terrain Rules. Add the following to the end of the Alternative Terrain Rules list. Number 4, parts of a terrain feature that touch the battlefield floor cannot be within 4 inches of a battlefield edge. As a reminder, the Alternate Terrain Rules essentially say that if you're not going to be using any of the cards, or you might not have the terrain that's specified in the cards or in whatever battle plan that you're playing, you can use alternate terrain rules. And it's very simple. You have your collection of terrain, and then you alternate between you and your opponent as to how you're going to set it up. Step 1 is usually that one of the players selects one of the features of terrain, they set it up anywhere on the field as they desire, and then you go back and forth. Rule number 2 for that stipulates that there must be at least 2 pieces of terrain in every battlefield quarter, and that all terrain must be set up before you draw your battle plan cards or anything like that. What this is essentially saying to you is that you can't put terrain within 4 inches of a battlefield edge. You're not able to block off long or short table edges through the use of terrain. There should be effectively like a perimeter going around your board that fighters would be able to move around as normal. Going down to the next universal abilities, page 70, change Rampage. So Rampage is the quad. 2, a fighter can make a bonus move action up to a number of inches equal to the value of this ability. Then they can make a bonus attack action. So this is fairly big. The current ruling for Rampage, so before this errata that goes in, is that the fighter will make a bonus move action and then a bonus attack. What's changed in this case is that they've made Rampage much less reliable in terms of how much movement you're going to get. I think that this is only really a big hit to very fast fighters that were using Rampage. So for example, if you had a Vanguard with its movement 10, it could use its Rampage, move 10, and then attack again, etc. I think it's a bit of a buff to slower fighters that might want to use Rampage. Whereas before, let's say you had a 3-move fighter, it would use its Rampage move 3, and now it'll move anywhere between 1 and 6, depending on what you roll on the dice. There's a lot of variance to this because getting a quad with the value that you want, or a high enough value, is much less likely than just getting a quad itself. But if I had to make a guess as to the real reason why they're making this change, it would be to not so much make Rampage worse, but to make the other faction quads better. There's a bit of a thing in Warcry where you take a look at the faction quad ability, you say, is it better than Rampage? And the answer is most normally no, because Rampage is such a good generic ability to have. And I think this really helps in that regard. Someone asked the other day on the forums as to why, for example, you'd want to use the Askagan Trueblade quad, which is +2 movement and +2 to your attacks, when you can just Rampage away, get your free move off, and attack anyway. And I think with this nerf to Rampage, it might mean that some of these other quads might suddenly become a lot more desirable. Going on to the next section, we got page 75, Objectives and Treasure Tokens. Change the second paragraph to read, Objectives and Treasure Tokens are treated as part of the battlefield floor, or the platform they're placed on. Fighters can move over and stand upon objective tokens. These rules also apply to all other markers and tokens that players are asked to place on a specific point on the battlefield. Fighters can move over treasure tokens. They cannot end a move with any part of their base touching a treasure token. In addition, when measuring distances to and from objectives, treasure tokens and other markers always measure to and from the center of the marker or the token. What you would do previously, especially with monsters on very large bases, is that you were able to, despite monsters not being able to pick up treasure, what you'd be able to do is fly them onto the treasure token, and their base is effectively so large that your opponent has absolutely no ability to get the token whatsoever. This rule will stop that interaction and allow it so that fighters can still go and get treasure tokens without necessarily being blocked off by other fighters themselves. Another common use of this rule previously would have been with beasts. Beasts cannot pick up treasure, but usually they come on relatively large bases where you wouldn't be able to get within range of the treasure token in order to pick it up if it was just sitting on top of it. So you are essentially forced to kill the beast or kill the monster or kill whatever it was in order to go and get that treasure. I think this is a welcome change. It clarifies how you measure to and from treasure tokens, which is another good thing. It doesn't specify the size of a treasure token, so how big it is supposed to be exactly. I guess you would just continue to use the sizes of the tokens that are sitting in the core rulebook. An interesting thing about that is that it mentions that when you're measuring distances to and from objectives to treasure tokens, etc., you always measure to and from the center of the marker or the token. So I'm not entirely sure how that interaction works with fighters being able to move over treasure tokens, but not being able to end a move with any part of their base touching the token. So does that mean the center of the token itself, or does that mean the whole token in the case of those cardboard cutouts that you get in the starter sets? I would think that if Games Workshop had standardized sizes for those tokens, then it would be a bit clearer. I think for now, rules as written specifically, you use the token itself and you cannot touch the whole token as opposed to just the center. Finally, we've got some updates here for the boxes. Predator and Prey is the box that contain the Askagan True Blades and the Claws of Karanak. They are specifying that Askagan True Blades belong to Death, Claws of Karanak belong to Chaos, which makes sense. Might and Madness, which is Royal Beast Flayers and Questor Soulsworn. Beast Flayers belong to Death again. Soulsworn belong to Order, which is also makes sense. It clarifies a bunch of the Questor Soulsworn rules. So just as a reminder, the Soulsworn themselves, they are an entire warband of all heroes. Normally you wouldn't be able to do that, but they have an exception to the rule. Whereas if you wanted to take Questor Soulsworn as your main faction, you're allowed to take any amount from within there. So what we're doing here is we are specifying how allies will work, because otherwise you just have way more hero rune marks. It's effectively how I think everyone's been playing, to be honest. You're not allowed more than 2 fighters with the hero rune mark and any other faction rune mark in the warband, so you can ally any 2 heroes as normal. And of course, there's no limit to the amount of fighters with both Questor Soulsworn and hero if you're doing a pure Questor Soulsworn list. There have been some rules updates. So Questor Soulsworn faction rules, translocation. So this is the teleport ability that they have. So you change it to choose a friendly fighter with the Stormcast Eternals rune mark. So any Stormcast Eternals rune mark within 3 inches of this fighter. Remove that fighter from the battlefield and immediately set them up anywhere in the battlefield more than 4 inches from all enemy fighters. The key change here is they changed it so that you cannot teleport anybody anymore. You're only allowed to teleport friendly Stormcast Eternals. So they really want you to be putting the Relictor, who has this ability, into Stormcast Eternal warbands and not allying it into whatever warbands that you like, teleporting things across the battlefield. Secondly, we have an update to the Royal Beast Flayers Pack Tactics ability. This is the ability that currently sits on their leader. Choose an enemy fighter that's visible to this fighter, allocate a number of damage points equal to the enemy fighter, equal to twice the number of friendly fighters with the Royal Beast Flayers rune mark within 3 inches of them. So again, they are specifying that it only works with Royal Beast Flayers. What people were doing before is allying in the leader into things like big old blocks of skeletons, if you're playing Soulblight Gravelords, and then mobbing your opponents, and then using the Royal Beast Flayers leader to do a whole bunch of damage with that. They've closed that down. Only Royal Beast Flayers now, so that limits its ability quite a bit, because that was previously why you would be allying in that fighter. To be honest, I think that probably kills it off as a potential ally choice, because like I said, that was really the reason why you were taking it. Number 7 here, Crypt of Blood Designer's Note, Ruler. The first inch of the ruler provided in the box is 3 millimeters too long. Bear this in mind with measuring distances for rules purposes. I mean, what can I say, Games Workshop? Come on, like, you control the printing here. Print things the right size. I get it. Things can slip through, but it's a ruler at the end of the day. You've been producing rulers for 25, 30 years now. Come on, you can get it right. Lastly, what they're doing here, they are adding in the rules for Bladeborn fighters into the errata itself. I've taken a look over this. I don't think anything has changed. However, if you see something, please do let me know. Everything seems to work in pretty much the same way as it used to. Previously, the only place you could find these rules were in a White Dwarf. So now they're putting it into the errata proper so that anyone can use the rules without necessarily having to buy the White Dwarf for that. And okay, that's it for today. Pretty short FAQ, I think. The biggest impact that we'll see is obviously from that Rampage change. I really do hope that it encourages people to look at some of their faction quads and possibly use them over Rampage, because I think that the abilities that a faction brings really are the flavor of what the faction is. And if you're just looking at, oh, this is the best fighter, I'm going to Rampage with him, then it kind of makes things a little bit boring overall. Aside from that, nothing all too massive. Updates to Quest or Soulsworn, updates to Royal Beast Flayers, updates to terrain placement if you're not going to use the cards, that kind of thing. But yeah, overall, it's a very tight errata. I'm still waiting for big points updates. Hopefully, they will get around to doing that at some point. I would have thought that with the upcoming release of Crypt of Blood, this would have really been a good time to take stock and see what they're doing and why they're doing it. If you want to see my opinions on what I think Games Workshop should be doing now that Crypt of Blood is out, I've done a video on that, and I'm going to put a link down in the description below. Maybe put it up here, wherever it ends up. But yeah, that's it. That's it from me for today. As always, if you like what you see, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And let me know what you think about the FAQ and the errata. If there are any outstanding questions that you think should have been answered. What you think about the new Rampage rules. Which of your faction quads are you now more likely to use because of that? And if there's anything else that you think Games Workshop should have covered. But yeah, that's it. That's it from me for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.